Okay, so please join me in gassho. Put your hand together if you can. Obstructions of karmic evil turned into the virtues. It is like the relation of ice and water. The more the ice, the more the water. The more the obstructions, the more the virtues. 在小功徳の体となる氷と水のごとくにて、氷大きに水多し、触り大きに徳多しと、高僧和さん短覧。Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu. Thank you for waiting, being patient. Okay. I was planning to turn off the screen share once, but I'm not gonna do that today because I'm gonna make another same trouble later. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending Twin Cities Buddhist Sangha's regular Sunday service this morning. In Minnesota, we had unusual fall this year. We had some freezing cold temperatures at the beginning of October, and then some snow. We had some snow, and then we just had one of the highest temperatures on the record in November this week. So Minnesota has much beautiful nature, the lakes and trees, and very, very beautiful. So we actually enjoyed the bright autumn color, orange, red, and yellow until leaves started falling. So when we have a warmer weather like the one we had this week on Halloween nights, so we think we are very fortunate to have such a nice weather. But on the other hand, many of you feel, is it right? And then they started worrying about, concerning about the global warming. So especially the weather, the warmer weather is usually very appreciated in Minnesota, but our mind don't seems like positive feelings. So our mind is like autumn leaves falling down to the ground, showing both sides. That some of you might feel have walk in your yard or like a family or friends or neighbor's yard. So I will try to have a shorter talk today because you might have a walk to do after this. So it's already November. I feel it getting close to the end of the year. So today's talk will be like a preview of the next few of my talk next year. So our service, we chant sutras. So we just chanted the sutra called Jusege, verses retelling the vows that appears in the first room of the sutra of the Buddha's immeasurable life, also called the Raja Sutra. So thank you, Gail, for explaining what the sutra means. So why do we chant sutras at service? Not only sutra chanting, the full ritual service, entire ritual service actually means that the praising Buddha's teaching. And then all sutras are Shakyamuni Buddha's teaching. The Shakyamuni Buddha's works, it is so essential for us. So by the way, so how many of you, you saw yourself in the mirror this morning? Did you check your appearance this morning? If you turned your camera on right now, this service, you must see yourself in the mirror this morning, and then to check yourself if it's okay, right? So, or maybe you did check yourself in your computer camera before you turned on your camera on. So when you logged in at the Zoom room, this service, and to fit your appearance, checking your appearance. So one of the seven masters, Shantao, says that sutra teaching like a mirror. So in Japanese, 教教はこれを例うるに鏡のごとし. So that this mirror is a little bit different from only checking the appearance. So when people do it, checking appearance in your mirror, to see yourself in your mirror, they usually show themselves a little bit better looking, right? So like if you see like your hair is messy, you just fix it, and then I don't know if you are a little bit smile or something to the mirror also. But this kind of mirror that reflects our inside, something inside our mind. So let me give you an example from one of the story based on the classic Aesop fable. The title is The Greedy Dog. So maybe many of you might know this story. This is my dog, Chewy. I don't think he's greedy, but I just show this picture because it's cute. So one day, while a hungry dog was walking along the street, he came across a huge piece of meat. This is the largest piece of meat I've never seen. The hungry dog quickly bit down on the meat and thought, "Yum, all mine. I'm going to enjoy this all by myself. I'm not going to share anyone." A little later, the dog came across the bridge stream and then started to cross it. But to his surprise, a dog in the stream below was looking at him with an even bigger piece of meat in his mouth. That dog had some meat too, and then his is bigger than mine. I'm going to take it from him. The greedy dog started to barking at the dog in the stream. "Ruff, ruff, wang, wang," in Japanese. "Give me that." When the dog opened his mouth to bark, he dropped his meat into the water. So when the dog opened his mouth to bark, he dropped his meat into the water. "Oh no, my meat fell. What have I done?" When the greedy dog realized that the dog in the stream was his own reflection. "Oh, my meat." The dog saw his own reflection on how greedy he was. That regretted his greed very much. And another story came from Japanese traditional comic storytelling. It's called rakugo. Silent practice is one of the most difficult Buddhist practice. One day at the temple, 4 monks started the practice. They set the lighted candle in the center of the circle, and then they were not allowed to talk, make any sounds of their voice. So they did very well. Several hours passed, and then became late evening. Suddenly, the slight wind came into the room from the tiny space of the sliding door. The door made some sounds, and then flame of the burning candle flickered. They tried so hard not to say single words, but one time a little bit stronger wind came in, and then candle flame went out. "Oh, it's out," one of the monks accidentally said. And another monk sitting next to him and then pointed him and then said, "It's time you are not allowed to talk." And then another monk said to another monk to next to him, "You just said it's time you are not allowed to talk." And then another monk pointed another monk, "You just said you can't talk too." And another monk said, "You are the one said you cannot talk." So 3 of them failed this silent practice. When they said something, they didn't think they broke the rules. Unconsciously, they broke the rules to blame others. And the last one said happily, "Well then, I am the one who completed this practice," which means 4 of them, they all failed. So this story tells us that we can see other people well, but not ourselves. So we all have our own eyes towards to us, toward to the outside. So we all have eyes toward to the outside. So we can't see others very well, other people very well. So other people's good things and the bad things. So terrible things you don't like or other people's failure, we can notice very, very clearly, instantly. We don't want to see our own evil things like our mistake or like we usually try to ignore them ourselves or try to make it other people's fault. It's not my fault. It's your fault, other people's fault. So we usually think, I know myself better than anyone or so. So we can't see ourselves with our own eyes very much. It is difficult to see ourselves as human beings who can't be away from three poisons: greed, anger, and ignorance, or stupidity. So you might have seen this picture many times if you have been learning Buddhism for a while. And we see the mirror. And then again, Master Shantao, one of the seven masters that is chosen by the Shinran Shonin, the sutra teaching is like a mirror, reflect our true selves. So some old Jodo Shinshu Sutra books use that have a mirror on the page inside of the cover page. So when you open the cover of the sutra books, so sometimes we can see that the mirror inside of the book. So when illuminated by the teachings, we become aware of the true selves. So this is my home temple, Fukuoka, Japan. So when you visit Buddhist temples in Japan or Japanese Pure Land Buddhist temples or the Shinshu temples in the US or other country, there is, it's called a Raiban. So there is a place to sit inside the Naijin, so the altar place. And then there are 4 scrolls for 3 sutras in front of Raiban. So you can see the pictures of the 4 scrolls. So they put the 4 scrolls in front of the Raiban, the sitting place. So there are actually 3 sutras. The one sutra has 2 scrolls because that's a longer one. So, but there are called, these are called the 3 Pure Land Sutras. So Shakyamuni Buddha is said have discoursed the Dharma in 84,000 different ways. So which are later recorded and handed down to us as a sutras. And the Shakyamuni Buddha always took a personality and the nature of the person, so he was teaching into account. From these many Dharma messages, the Shinran Shonin's master, Shinran Shonin's teacher, Honen Shonin, taught these 3 sutras are the most essential sutras for the Pure Land teaching. So the first one is Bussetsu Muryo Jukyo, Daikyo, the sutra on the Buddha's immeasurable life. It's also called Shora name, the larger sutra. And then second one is a Bussetsu Muryo Jukyo. It's also called the Kangyo in Japanese in the Shora way. That's the sutra on the Buddha of the immeasurable life. Or Contemplation Sutra. And then Bussetsu Amida Kyo, Shokyo, is a sutra on Amida Buddha, also called Amida Sutra or the smaller sutra. I think I mistakenly typed on the second one. It's a Contemplation Immeasurable Sutra, sorry. Okay. Especially the first one, the larger sutra, the Shinran Shonin selected to announce that this is a true teaching. That the Shinran Shonin said in his writing, Kyogyo Shinsho, the true teaching, practice, and the realization of the Pure Land way, it said to reveal the true teaching, it is a larger sutra of the Buddha's of the immeasurable life. I will talk next time about Shinran Shonin that made such a statement, why he did it, or when I talk more about the Raja Sutra. So Shakyamuni Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha's teaching, it said, giving medicine according to the illness, or byo yoyaku in Japanese. So when we get cold, we need to take medicine to work for the cold. If we have a headache, we take medication to relieve the pain. So do we use eye drops for the headache? No, I don't think so. So when we are sick, don't know why we are going to, So when we are sick and then don't know why, and we usually go to see the doctor, and then the doctors that take a look at the symptoms, and then they will find out what is cause of the symptoms. We need the people. We needed the proper medication for it. So otherwise we cannot fix it. The most suitable medicine for each symptoms is the most essential medicine for that person. So we all know that. So the Buddha's teachings are explained in such a way to they are most effective. So for each individual's trouble and sufferings, just like choosing a proper medication for the individual illness. In this, the three Pure Land Sutras, the larger sutra is said corresponding to medicine. The Contemplation Sutra is said corresponding to patient. The Metta Sutra is said corresponding to doctors. So there's nothing like which sutra is better than others. Choosing right one that suited for the symptoms is the most important. Only studying Buddhism hard that doesn't mean anything. The Buddhism is meaningless just by looking at it. We have to find out the cause of suffering and pain, and just like going to see the doctor. And then we take a medication we need. So it is not easy to see ourselves and then take a look at the mirror. The mirror illuminates us inside. So how to take a look yourself is a Buddhist teaching. It is sutras. If you find the symptoms and then need to the medication, to go back to the Buddha teaching, sutras. Our Jodo Shinshu teacher, the Shinran Shonin, spent 20 years at Mount Hiei in Kyoto, and the most difficult practice. After he met his teacher Honen Shonin, Shinran Shonin studied very hard still. The Shinran Shonin himself was illuminated by the teaching and realized him through himself, and he mentioned himself. As the teaching feel my body as a mirror, I become aware of the I who is carrying unending worldly desires. The Shinran Shonin quoted in his writing that not on the calling and many calling, ichinen tanen moni, foolish beings, we are full of ignorance and blind passion. Our desire and countless and anger, wrath, and jealousy and envy are overwhelming, arising without pause. To the very vast moment of the life, they do not cease or disappear or exhaust themselves. So next time, I will touch upon these sutras individually in my talk, and then we can see what kind of illness that we suffer through these sutras. So why it happened to us, how we can survive this kind of situation as a Jodo Shinshu named followers. I hope you don't get bored with my talk then. So I will try to modify it, get your interest. And actually one of the sutras, the Contemplation Sutra, is fun to read. So there is a tragedy in the story, like tragedies, just like a play, like a Shakespearean type of play. So it is a fascinating story. So it's something like this. So there is a king and a queen and their son, the prince. The son, prince, was almost killed by his parents when he was a baby. The son found out the truth later, and then he was very mad to lock his father, king, in a jail. And then he closed her mother into jail too. So that is just the beginning of the Contemplation Sutra. The sutra tells us the reason why that the parents tried to kill their son. So how did he find out the truth about his childhood? What happened to the king and the queen in the jail? So what happened to the prince? So did you start to feel looking forward to hearing this story? So I will not talk about any more today about this sutra, but please remember these three sutras. So all three are essential for Jodo Shinshu teaching and called the Three Pure Sutras. So after we learned all three sutras, we can be more familiar with Jodo Shinshu teaching, and it helps to understand that Jodo Shinshu is the path for the ordinary and ignorant person to become a Buddha. As Shinran Shonin quoted, as the teaching feel my body as a mirror, I become aware of I who is carrying unending worldly desires. So we are the one cannot be away from karmic evil mind. The sutras illuminate us like a mirror as the foolish beings, are full of ignorance and blind passion. The countless desire, anger, jealousy, envy, arising without pause until the last moment of our life. But the object of Amida Buddha's compassion, virtues, liberation is the evil person. The word evil used in the Jodo Shinshu does not mean bad as defined as our narrow and judgmental notions of morality. It points to something much more profound and certain roots. The more obstructions, the more virtues. So I will close my talk by reading the Wasan poem, that the one I read at the beginning of my talk today. So please join me in Gasho, put your hands together if you can. Obstructions of karmic evil turns into virtues. It is like the relation of ice and water. The more the ice, the more the water. The more the obstructions, the more the virtues. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.